Tonight, less than 48 hours after it was passed in Parliament, the Emergencies Act is revoked.
We are confident that existing laws and bylaws are now sufficient to keep people safe.
Trudeau, though, still defending his decision to invoke the act last week in order to bring an end to the blockades and protests in Ottawa. And
we are seeing rapid rise in demand. This would make a bad situation that much worse.
As Ukraine declares a state of emergency over fears of a Russian invasion, how the escalating tensions will further impact already high prices at GTA pumps. And
we all feel a sense of feeling very behind.
The struggles and fears of this year's graduating class after having most of their high school career disrupted by the pandemic. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Now we will get to those stories, but first, breaking news out of Russia, where President Vladimir Putin has announced his country will conduct a special military operation in eastern Ukraine. In a televised address made just about an hour ago, Putin warned other countries that any attempt to interfere with the action would lead to consequences they have never seen. He claimed the operation is in response to threats coming from Ukraine and is intended to protect civilians. He added Russia doesn't intend to occupy Ukraine. Now, this announcement comes hours after separatists in Ukraine asked Moscow to help repel aggression. After the breakaway regions issued their plea, a witness said at least 5 explosions were heard in the separatist-held city of Donetsk. 4 military trucks were seen heading to the scene. A conflict zone monitor says airlines should stop flying over any part of Ukraine because of the risk of an unintended shoot-down or a cyber attack targeting air traffic control amid tensions with Russia. Now, Ukraine earlier today declared a state of emergency, mobilizing military reservists in fear of a Russian invasion. Now, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine already having an impact at the pumps here in the GTA. Our Dahlia Ashley spoke to economists who say it's not the only place we can expect prices to soar.
It's a busy night at many gas stations in the city.
Then it's about $60 or something, you fill up.
Look at what it's at right now.
Oh my God, 90. Wow, yeah, rocket. Yeah, it's probably, yeah, it's been a long time since I filled up then, yeah.
That's quite the jump, huh?
Woo! Crazy.
Gas prices in Toronto tonight is sitting at around $1.57, but drivers are filling up for fear they will soon spike even more.
Outrageous.
Behind the United States and Saudi Arabia, Russia is the 3rd largest producer and exporter of oil in the world. The escalating conflict between the country and Ukraine has some analysts predicting gas prices could soon reach historically high levels.
Russia may very well push a lot of us over the cliff in terms of prices, probably an increase in the order of about 30 cents a litre. So that would put average prices here in Toronto, the GTA, Southern Ontario, from the $1.57, $1.56 range, likely up to $1.88 to $1.90.
Economics experts say inflation is the highest it's been in over 40 years. And should the crisis in Ukraine and Russia continue to escalate, gas prices aren't the only thing that will be skyrocketing.
It certainly also has hurt the stock market in the last couple of days. So people's pension funds, people's wealth certainly affected. The price of commodities in general has skyrocketed, and they were already high. So, you basically have the perfect storm.
He says it's a domino effect. The longer the crisis lasts and the greater the severity, the higher the prices will go. Gas prices are expected to rise by 1 cent by midnight tonight at most GTA stations. Dahlia Ashley, CBC News, Toronto.
Over to Ottawa now. 2 days after it was passed in Parliament, the federal government is revoking the Emergencies Act. Justin Trudeau announced the decision today. The Prime Minister made history last Monday when he invoked the act to help end the blockades in Ottawa. Karina Roman has more.
The federal government will be ending the use of the Emergencies Act.
The government continues to argue if it weren't for the measures invoked under the Emergencies Act, the coordinated expulsion of the protesters from Ottawa, the towing of massive rigs and trucks, the choking off of millions of dollars supporting the convoy, the reopening of important trade routes, would not have been possible.
The barricades and occupations got implanted to a level that we felt last Monday that we needed to give time-limited, proportional, reasonable, charter-compliant, extra tools to our authorities.
Trudeau says while the emergency is over, the threat is not. There are still groups of trucks at encampments in rural Ottawa and chatter on social media of more protests and blockades. But the Prime Minister says he's been reassured law enforcement can handle it now.
The existing tools that police forces have across the country will be sufficient to deal with further disruptions.
Trudeau argues the right to protest remains, but that does not include holding a city hostage or jeopardizing international trade relations.
We're fighting a virus, not each other.
Bank accounts frozen under the Act are now being unfrozen, but crimes committed while the Act was invoked will still be prosecuted. A parliamentary committee will review the use of the Act, and a full inquiry will begin within a couple of months to look at all the circumstances that led to this historic moment. Karina Roman, CBC News, Ottawa.
In step with the federal government, Ontario is ending the state of emergency it declared on February 11th to deal with the blockades. Lorenda Redekop has more on what prompted the Ford government's decision.
Release actually came out as Justin Trudeau was still making his announcement. So it says that as of 5 p.m., that state of emergency, it's terminated. But there's also another line in that release. It goes on to say that the emergency tools provided to police will be maintained at this time as officers continue to address ongoing activity on the ground. So it made me wonder, okay, what changed? You know, what does this really mean? I called the Premier's office and they say that while the state of emergency is over, the emergency orders connected to all of this, they're still in place. And when they were put into place, it was on a Saturday and it was for 14 days. And so as of this coming Saturday, they either expire or Cabinet can choose to renew them. This is things like those extra fines that can be up to $100,000 or possibly 1 year in jail for people. Over the next couple days, Cabinet will have to decide whether to end these emergency orders or not. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
The OPP has launched an internal investigation after some of its officers appear to have donated to the recent convoy protests. The officers' names were among the thousands that were leaked after the crowdfunding website Give Send Go was hacked. OPP spokesperson Bill Dixon said any demonstration views that may be interpreted as condoning illegal activity is in direct opposition to the OPP's mandate. Meanwhile, the Toronto Police said 2 of its members' names were released as part of the hack, and it is currently reviewing that information. York Police are asking for your help in identifying a possible witness in the murder of an 85-year-old woman.
This is a very tragic and awful situation. You know, this was a woman who was living in this community for, I'm told, about 50 years or more. 85 years old. She liked to knit. She was a mother, a grandmother. And we want to get some answers.
The victim has been identified as Sandy Gauthier. She was found dead after a fire in her Georgina home around 5 a.m. on January 15th. An autopsy determined Gauthier was murdered. Investigators have obtained surveillance footage that shows an individual walking near the home just hours before the fire broke out. Detectives want to speak with that person. Police have set up a command post near Gauthier's home. They're encouraging area residents to come forward with any information that might assist their investigation. Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Colette, lots of sun today, but a bit deceiving because it was very chilly.
Yeah, boy, oh boy, we had those temperatures just dropping off from where they were like early morning hours. We were still at 9 degrees. This is midnight. We held at 9 till 1 a.m. And then by 2 a.m., the temperature had almost been cut in half behind that cold front to 5. And then it was a couple of degrees that temperature would fall as we kind of went hour by hour after that. And then it just continued in through the daytime too. So afternoon we're around -6, and obviously it's continued to plummet from there, headed to a low tonight of -12, but feeling like almost -20. Now, we do have quieter conditions for now, not for long, and we have the clear skies overnight tonight. We'll get into lighter winds and a northeasterly flow. That does mean some extra cloud cover certainly possible through Hamilton area tomorrow, St. Catharines early in the morning. Otherwise, sunshine. However, look at this. This is what's coming tomorrow night and into Friday. I'm going to go into that in much more detail, how much snow we'll be seeing. There's a look at that overnight low, and tomorrow's daytime high -4, Kelda.
Thanks so much, Colette. The opposition parties at Queen's Park say the government is playing politics by giving itself an extra month to release its annual budget.
It's balderdash. I've been around here a long time, and the games that governments play around budget timing and around budget numbers is shameful.
I don't even think it's a very good tactic, because I think they're going to upset municipalities, social service agencies, nonprofits, and other community organizations that rely on government funding that now have to wait an additional month.
The PCs proposed the new budget deadline yesterday as part of that same bill that scraps fees for license plate renewals. Liberal MPP John Fraser says by delaying the budget to just over a month before the election, the government could avoid debate from the opposition. Now, Toronto Mayor John Tory said he doesn't care as long as money from the province comes in. A Scarborough MPP is again calling on the province to treat gun violence as a public health crisis. Mitzi Hunter has put forward a bill that, if passed, she says could help better support survivors of gun violence by making counseling services available through OHIP. Hunter says this is especially important for students of schools where there has been a shooting.
We don't know when trauma is going to surface for people who have experienced this level of violence, and we need to make sure that they have those immediate supports in place through the OHIP system, through the health system, that can be there to help them to overcome it.
In a letter addressed to Ontario's Minister of Health, Hunter says firearm discharges and shootings in Scarborough are already up 43% this year. This comes just over a week after an 18-year-old was shot and killed at David and Mary Thompson Collegiate Institute in Scarborough. Hunter says her bill would also enable boards of health to develop programs and services specifically designed to reduce gun violence. An opposition bill was also tabled in Ontario's legislature today, aimed at fighting Islamophobia and other hate crimes. The NDP has named it Our London Family Act, after the Afzal family, who were victims of a deadly truck attack in London, Ontario last year.
This is an emotional moment. I think everyone here agrees that the list of those we've lost to Islamophobic violence in our province is far too long. It's Islamophobia at the level of our institutions that legitimizes and permits individual acts of hate to occur.
The NDP says if passed, their bill would establish a provincial review of hate crimes and hate-motivated incidents that happen in Ontario. It would also designate safe zones around houses of worship and present new tools for schools to combat racism. Going back to our top story, Russian President Vladimir Putin has announced his country will conduct a special military operation in eastern Ukraine. These videos come from a Telegram channel in Ukraine where explosions can be heard in Mariupol. In an address made just about an hour ago, Putin claimed the operation is in response to threats coming from Ukraine and is intended to protect civilians. He said Russia doesn't have a goal of occupying Ukraine. He also warned countries that any attempt to interfere with the military action would lead to consequences they have never seen. All right, back to Canada now. And in Quebec, elementary and high school students will no longer be required to wear masks in class when they return from March break. Now, here in Ontario, Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown is urging the province to do the same, while Toronto's officials say for the time being, masks should stay.
We know that there will come a time when all the measures that have been put into place, including such things as masking, will be reviewed and ultimately will be rolled back. So for now, though, I would suggest that we take a gradual and phased approach to this, rolling back of measures.
In Saskatchewan, masks in school will be optional as of March 1st. Alberta already dropped its in-school mask mandate on February 14th. Premier Doug Ford says masks will remain mandatory in Ontario for now. After having most of their high school career disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic, some students from this year's graduating class are feeling underprepared for what comes next. As Trevor Dunn reports, educators also have concerns.
It's been very hard. We all feel a sense of feeling very behind.
Just like many students heading to university in September, Evan Wu hasn't taken an exam since grade 10.
I really don't know how prepared I feel for that journey ahead after high school because of the ways that we've been learning and are behind in learning.
Like other Ontario students, Wu has endured at least 3 extended school closures due to COVID-19. Instead of taking exams, he's been working on shorter assignments or open book tests, but those don't require the same level of studying and knowledge retention. After all of the upheaval in schools over the past 3 years, educators worry that students aren't prepared for the demands of college and university.
I think there are a lot of gaps in learning. A lot of it has to do with even exam writing. Let's just say, for instance, grade 12 students, the last time they have written an exam was in grade 9. For next year, universities or colleges, when exam writing is expected of them, they don't have that experience to get them through that.
Some school boards, including the TDSB, are accommodating for pandemic disruption by freezing student grades where they were before the winter break. At colleges and universities, there are signs that pandemic learning is leaving a mark on young minds.
Students who were struggling before could make it through and did. We're seeing now, during COVID, since COVID has started, that those same kinds of students, the ones that were struggling before but squeak by, aren't squeaking by anymore. They drop out in greater numbers.
Like high schools, colleges and universities are adapting too and trying to strike a balance.
Not easier, different. I think that what we need to do is engage the technical resources and the personnel resources that we have in large quantities at the university to meet the students where they're at.
Moving forward, educators say, will be about recognizing that this year's grads may be underprepared and accommodating that without diminishing their education. Trevor Dunn, CBC News, Toronto.
Residents in Brampton are being given the green light to return home after flooding forced them out last week.
Brampton Emergency Measures Office has assessed the area and determined that it is no longer an emergency scene, which is great news. Thank you. Residents have been notified, and everyone who has been displaced is now able to return to their home. And we will be working on getting the safe return of all utilities as well. While the ongoing efforts to remove ice and water remain, certain areas, Churchville Park South and the bridge, will remain closed until they are further assessed.
Yesterday's warmer temperatures and rainfall did increase water levels in some areas, but the water has not risen in areas around the homes that were impacted by the floods. And you're looking at a live shot of the Toronto skyline, mostly clear this evening as temperatures continue to dip. Currently -9, but feeling closer to -20. Let's go back to Colette now with a look at your extended forecast. And Colette, these cold temperatures will be sticking around as we await this next system that will be coming through soon.
Yeah, we get this break tomorrow and into the afternoon. Winds will be lighter. We'll have some sunshine. That'll all be quite nice. However, we've generally seen those temperatures dropping. A very cold start tomorrow morning, well below seasonal. And even tomorrow, the daytime high is going to still be below seasonal by a few degrees. Now, we'll get that sunshine, but it's late in the day. So I'm thinking closer towards midnight when the next system will begin. It continues into Friday morning. The commute on Friday morning will not likely be a good one because it will be not only wet with the falling snow, but we're talking about blowing snow. So reduced visibility as well on those roadways. I'll get to how much snowfall we're talking about in just a moment here, showing you some of that sunshine and that setup for tomorrow. tomorrow. Some areas, because of the wind off the lake, like around Hamilton, Burlington, you may have some extra cloud cover at times, even if a few flurries are possible, but the wind shouldn't be too strong. And then we look at what happens. So Thursday into the evening, it's just beginning as some flurries and then gets heavier into southwestern Ontario. By midnight, it's hitting the GTA, still there in the morning, and then at least it makes pretty good steady pace at getting out of here. So by the afternoon, we begin to get into some clearing. But a look at those, yeah, so I want to show you the accumulations. Generally in Toronto, I think it's actually going to be closer to this 10 or just a little bit over 10 to 12. But it's when you come around the Golden Horseshoe, Hamilton towards St. Catharines, over towards Eastern Ontario, Kingston, that's where you'll be closer to that 15 centimeters or a little more. Winds are likely closer to that 10 to 12 as well in terms of what we'll be seeing. Temperatures tonight, look at this, and even your wind chill at -16 Windsor. Overnight around the GTA, we'll have wind chills of -18 to -24. That's how it will feel tomorrow morning, even though the winds will be lighter than they were, so blustery today. -4 that high. There you go on Friday with that snowfall that we'll be dealing with, and then slightly quieter into the weekends. Some flurries in the forecast, but that looks like about it on Sunday, and still cooler. Those temperatures are not likely to come up, Kelda, until we get to about mid or later next week.
All right. Thanks so much, Colette. Finally tonight, today is National Beef Patty Day. And naturally, Mayor John Tory visited Little Jamaica to mark the day.
It's a vintage Canadian story where some well-meaning public official tried to change the name to a Caribbean meat pocket. Can you imagine trying to market that? But this is, it's a great way to celebrate Caribbean and Jamaican food. Is a great way to celebrate patties, and a great way because it happens to fall in Black History Month too. So it's all good, and it's great fun that so many people are out here trying to have one of these patties. They're great.
Now, Toronto has an interesting backstory when it comes to the name of the snack. In 1985, the Canadian government tried to stop Jamaican bakeries and restaurants from using the term beef patty because at the time, Canada's Meat Inspection Act classified a beef patty as what goes in a hamburger. Now, for more on Toronto's bizarre 1985 patty wars, you can watch a CBC short documentary called Patty versus Patty on CBC Gem. And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night.